All right. And we're live.
Live.
It says we're streaming. Yes, it does. It says we're streaming. So, welcome to another episode of the Live Clean and Fight Dirty show. Today's topic: what is self-defense? Now, self-defense can mean a lot for different people, and talking to Hackelman, there's a spectrum. Now, some people think it's not over until it's over in one hit. Others people feel that you should train to fight. But what do experts say? That's why we're here with the expert, your online coach, UFC coach, and Kajikibble black belt, John Hackelman. It's about to start because I can't use that other phrase. That's patented. So we're going to go ahead and get started. John, what do you think self-defense is, and what's the spectrum? You were mentioning this off. I know you mentioned also off camera. This came from TikTok. Oh, and if if not following John on TikTok, you really should because the Instagram is not up anymore. They took it down. Those people, the powers that be. But there is a TikTok that's out there now. What are you under on TikTok now, brother?
I'm on. It's Pitmaster. Yeah, or you can just put in John Hackelman. I'll come up.
All right. You can follow him on.
But yeah. I was reading TikTok. I'm on TikTok more now because my Instagram still isn't on. They cut me off. They disabled it, man, and I don't know why. That's weird. It was really weird, but whatever. So I'll get another Instagram later, but right now I'm more TikTok. I'm a lot of because you got me into it. I'm doing a lot more YouTube. I need some help with it, but I'm getting a lot more Instagram or YouTube, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and then my Facebook. But so I'm on TikTok and I see a guy and he's talking about when you're fighting, you don't have to try to destroy the guy, and it shouldn't be all or nothing. And I don't know, he was saying a lot of those kind of buzzwords that I hear people on the other side of the self-defense spectrum. I think there's here nothing, okay, and then here death. All right. And then you got a lot of in between stuff. You know what I mean?
I hate to interrupt you. So on the spectrum, we have do nothing.
Yeah.
On one end, do absolutely nothing. And then we have kill the person on the other end. Okay. All right.
And I'm more on the death side. I'm not, legally and everything. But on this side, where the nothing is, that's where a lot of people they start. It goes from nothing to be aware of your surroundings. They talk a lot about that. They talk a lot about verbal judo, de-escalation, body language. Don't trigger people. There's all these, and their classes. I mean, there's some people they spend all their time over here. And that's great because that could get rid of a lot of stuff. But I worry more about when it gets over here, not quite to the death. I'm where I stop is stop the threat. So I go stop the threat. Then next is just kill them. I don't believe you should just kill them, but you should stop the threat. And a lot of times that does kill them or hurt them real bad. So I'm more on that side of it. But a lot of people are on this side. So he disagreed with my philosophies on self. So we talked a lot about it, and it got really interesting because, like, he has a daughter. Okay, she's I think 15 or something, and they work together on there, and they do little video stuff, but it's mainly verbal stuff. So I believe a lot of that. I mean, you could stop a lot of stuff just like being aware of your surroundings. You can get away from a lot of stuff. But now let's say you're at an event. You're at a sporting event. You're walking in a crowd. You can't be aware of your surroundings now. Somebody could just they're touching you. People are bumping into you. They could stab you. They could take your money. They could do all kind of things, and you can't be walking around. I mean, you just can't. It's not reasonable to think that. So there's times where you can't, you're walking your Walmart parking lot at night. Yeah, you try to look, but there could be somebody hiding behind a car that attacks you. Some people are hiding from you, so that takes care of that. Be aware of your surroundings because they're expecting you. You're not expecting them. So being aware of your surroundings is very, it's a good, it's a really good um, technique. But what about when they got you? Okay, now they got you. Okay, you don't have time. If somebody shoved his 15-year-old daughter up against the car, she doesn't have time to say, "Okay, let's talk here. I'm going to try to talk him down." So let's talk. How are you feeling? Seems like you're upset. Do you want to talk about something? So you can't do that. You got some guy shoves you up against your car in a Walmart parking lot at 9 o'clock at night. You have no idea why he did it. He looks like he has rage in his face, and he's right about to punch you in the face. You don't have any time to start trying to be philosophical with him or psychological with him and try to counsel him and try to talk him down and watch out for your verbal cues, nonverbal cues as well. It's just too late. You have to pull that trigger, maybe literally, but you have to pull the trigger because he's about to hurt you. And my question is, when they're saying if you're teaching these people to hit first, that's not, it's not legal, or it's not moral. And so I say to anyone like that, including him, I really like this guy, so I hope we chat again. But if someone shoves your daughter and you've said already, don't hit first, should you wait till he punches her as hard as he can in the face before she defends herself by striking first?
Well,
So I believe you should strike first, because if you don't, you know what the other option is? Let them strike first, right?
so
So I think it's better to strike first, worry about the consequences later, than let them strike first and not be conscious enough to worry about any consequences, except who's going to suction your trachea tube next, because you hate the guy that's on the night shift because he's always smells like booze and he doesn't do it very well, and it hurts when he suctions your tracheostomy. You'd rather have the guy on the day shift because he's much more clean, he doesn't smell like booze, and he does a much better job. You don't get that choice, right? It's not about choices anymore. You're going to get whoever they give you if you're in a coma.
yeah.
Anyway.
So,
All right. So that's what we were discussing. So I see his points, but I feel like it's more important to train hard on this side, because even though more stuff happens over here, when it happens over here, the consequences are life or death.
So first off, turning to the comments, hey Zen, we do see you there. The comments have been on the whole time. And the best choice is to walk away. However, if they don't stop talking to you, you have to do what it takes. I personally don't like TikTok. Sorry, bro. There's no Instagram. You gotta go to TikTok. No choice. Get over that.
Yeah. Well, if they didn't shut me out of Instagram, I would love to be there. They shut me off.
You don't want to end up in the hospital. Nope. John Cox, hitting first is like having a 17 leaf in the fourth quarter. And a 17 lead. Okay, I gotcha. Hitting first is like having a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter. And there's a few things that came up here. First of all, if any of you have any comments on this topic or any other topic, please say it. He was talking to Common Sense Self-Defense on TikTok is the channel that he's mentioning. Another thing I want to mention, a great book on this topic is Protecting the Gift, Keeping Children and Teenagers Safe. And in that book, it's done by an analyst who interviews victims and survivors of assault, specifically women. And he came up with some of the stuff you talked about, some of the stuff the guy from Common Self-Defense, be aware of your surroundings and everything. But When it came to the survivors, it was the people who followed their sixth sense of some person that was lurking in the shadows, so they were a little aware, but still, like you said, that's not going to stop them from being aware of them isn't going to stop the attack. So these people did get attacked, but because they were aware, they were getting ready. And one of the survivors, the book opens up with a survivor who ends up with her daughter. She's walking out of the movie theater. She gets a creepy vibe from a guy at the movie theater because one of the things he talks about is the person who's going to assault you is going to approach you first. And if you get a creepy vibe from them, they're going to approach you. Either they're going to approach you indirectly or directly. This person directly approached them and made a comment that the daughter had a cute dress or shirt on. It kind of creeped out the mom. And then a few hours later, assaulted them in the parking lot. Tried to sexually assault the mother in the car while the daughter was scrambling into the car, and she got away. The short story, if you check out the book, she like the way she described it happened so fast, but she ended up stabbing the guy in the eye. She ended up stabbing the dude in the eye with her keys, and took off, and then she scratched him and bit him and all kinds of stuff, and then she drove off, and he flew out of the car. It's a crazy story, but again, she didn't hesitate, and she went for whatever she could. She was her thought process in the interview was she was thinking of giving up, but then she thought about the fact that after whatever happens to her, her daughter's in the car. It gave her this fighting instinct that she had to fight for her life. So that was like back to your spectrum. She had to kill. She wasn't thinking about. She knew she had to fight for her life and for her daughter's life, and she didn't care about the repercussions. And she said after the fact, she thought, "Oh my God, I just assaulted someone, and maybe he's blinded for life." But she didn't think about that at the time. She was just thinking about pretty much killing the guy. The guy's trying to kill me. I'm going to kill him.
Yeah. Well,
So
if somebody attacks you, here's an old one that I've been abiding by for years. If someone attacks you physically with the intent, and they always have the intent to really badly hurt you, maybe kill you, they don't deserve to ever see again.
yeah, yeah,
There's one.
it's pretty simple. Yeah, they don't. They don't just. Yeah, they don't. And that's the other thing they talk about is location. Um, People always talk about de-escalation. Yeah, great, de-escalate a situation, but as soon as someone tries to move your location, or if you're in a private location, like the assault's taking place and it's not in the public, that's a no, that's a dead zone. Like they're trying to kill you. You have to assume that they are trying to physically kill you. That would be your best assumption. You should always fight under that assumption. But if you're in a private location, or if the person who's robbing you or whatever they're trying to do to you tries to move you from a public location to another location, a private location, that is when they've just escalated to trying to kill you. Now you shouldn't have to wait. You shouldn't wait. You shouldn't wait for it to get to that point, because by then it's too late. So a lot of people are like, oh yeah, but just comply if they're trying to steal your wallet. Just comply and give them your wallet until they go away. Yeah, maybe, but as soon as they start trying to move you, um, yeah, you don't want to mess around with those kind of situations. And again,
Yeah.
it's great to be aware, avoid the situation in the first place. Be aware of your surroundings, it's all good stuff. But once push comes to shove, yeah, like you said, it's already escalated past de-escalation. I don't think de-escalation is going to help you.
De-escalation is great if you're at a bar and you're bumped into someone and they start, talking to you a certain way, or you're at a party with with some people and somebody, does this or that. But de-escalation is a moot point. If some fucking guy in the ER and you're a nurse and you're washing your hands and he comes up behind you and starts fucking punching you, you know, I just you just the it's a moot point. You know what I mean? It's like it's good for like talking to your kids, de-escalate them, but it just doesn't. Or bullies on the school ground sometimes. But when you're physically attacked, if you're really attacked, de-escalation doesn't mean anything. It's a moot point. It's like, you could try to avoid this and try to, be aware of your surroundings. That's great. But you'll end up, maybe just don't go so many places, or don't go to bad places. I mean, you could do the real easy ones like that, but wherever you are, you can get attacked. And the de-escalation thing, when somebody's see, mine is my. I'm like the, they're like the band-aids. They're like the band-aid people. Like I say, like they'd be like the nurses' aides. So they're very necessary because we need band-aids. Because anytime it gets a scratch or a cut, you need to put the Neosporin and put the band-aid, or it'll turn into infection. You could lose your arm. So band-aids are so important, and everybody should put one on. And everybody should learn how to put one on. But when it gets up to the other end of the spectrum, that's when you need a trauma surgeon. That's when your arm just got cut off and you're about to die if they don't fix it. The band-aid is gone. A band-aid is not going to help anymore. De-escalation is not going to help. Verbal judo is not going to help anymore. Trying to not trigger them isn't going to help anymore. You have to stop that threat, whatever it takes. And the best way to do that is either move locations if you can, but I assume you can't if you're in this position, or take them away from their consciousness, right? So those are the only two real ways. So all the other stuff sounds great, and it's great to have those little, talks and stuff and mat chats on martial arts gyms, and you can write a book about it. That's great. But at the end of the day, if you don't learn how to be the trauma surgeon, if you need to be the trauma surgeon, somebody's going to die. If you don't put on the band-aid, if you don't learn how to put on a band-aid, yeah, you might die down the road or get a bad infection. So you should learn how to put on a band-aid. But being a trauma surgeon takes a hell of a lot more training and time and energy, and the stakes are much higher at that end of the spectrum. So a lot of people like to stay in the other end because the stakes aren't really that high. You know what I mean? But they are over here. So that's kind of my idea too.
And I think what happens, and then Zen says this is why I'm always in my room unless I have to go to work, so I stay in a safe place the whole time. Well, and here's the thing, like you can't live in fear, but at the same time, that's why I really like that book by Gavin DeBecker. He's a securities consultant. Um, it's not just being fine de-escalation, but being aware. His argument was that people have desensitized themselves to dangerous situations because they rely on the idea that there'll always be the police or someone to protect them. So people kind of walk around in civilization. We don't, because we're martial artists, but your average non-martial artist kind of walks along their day, getting their coffee, working 9 to 5, and not really ever thinking about violence. When they get a creepy vibe off someone. And another thing he said, the creepy vibes are usually people like your neighbor. A lot of assaults are people you know. So it gets into a creepier side of criminal justice. The idea that the person who assaults someone kind of stakes out their victim first. So he said, I don't want you to be paranoid about everybody you meet, but a lot of those signs and cues that you get are shut down because they're like, oh, this person's kind of being creepy. And you put that away in a civil society saying, no, they're not. They're just a little bit overly touchy, or they like to touch people a little too much, or whatever it is. And he's saying, you should follow those creepy vibes. If you get a creepy vibe from someone, stay away from them. Keep your kids away from that person if you're getting a creepy vibe. And then when the attack happens, don't when stuff starts to happen, people will ward off the warning signs. A lot of people, when they get the first warning sign that someone was assaulted or attacked, they kind of brush it under the rug. No, it wasn't that big of a deal, or that didn't happen. They'll go into these denial phases. So, and then he also mentioned about when people fight. When they actually fight, they tend to think about what's legally right. What you just mentioned, the idea of, oh, I'm going to de-escalate someone who's trying to stab me, at a hospital ward for in your situation, right? And they go back to this not tapping into their primal instinct of fighting to maim or kill. They're always thinking about legal aspects, which you really should throw out the window. I train because I hate violence, says Zen, and it's an ugly thing, says Zen. Yeah, that's true.
But if you think of things like those things, and you're getting attacked, if you even put it in your mind when you're getting physically attacked, the arrogance you must have is instead of just protecting yourself, everything 100%, you're actually thinking that maybe you don't have to defend yourself that hard because you're that much better of a fighter than this guy. Well, imagine if you're fighting Francis Nagano and he's trying to knock you out, and you're thinking, well, I don't want to hurt him too bad, so I'm gonna tap him around a little bit. And I mean, you got to fight for your life. You got to pick up something, stab him with something. I mean, you just have to think of survival and not legal. The legal you have to think of ahead of time, like when you're training, and think of different predicaments so you get them in your mind. But mainly when the threat is done, then you start thinking about the legality, because then and only then should you think about the legality, like what should you say to the cops, what should you do, what not to say and shit like that. But if you're thinking legal while you're getting attacked, you won't have to worry about legal because you're gonna worry about being in a nursing home in a fucking coma.
Dead. Like Gavin DeBecker in his book, he said you're gonna die if you waste time thinking about the legalities of a situation. Your attacker does not care about your attacker does not care about the legalities of a situation. They've already blasted past that point, and if you're not
And
up to speed, you're gonna die.
yeah.
You have to put that in your head.
And another one of maybe even more important than de-escalating, and this doesn't always hold true because there are people that are got a screw loose, but you have to let them put it in their mind that they want to fucking de-escalate you. Have them be fucking, because they're not scared of going to jail. They're not scared. Criminals aren't scared. I know. I worked at the prison for almost 10 years. I know this. They love going to prison because they get to hang out with their friends, sit on the yard, go to the commissary. I mean, it's not that bad for them, and it's like home or a second home. They just go in and out. So there's a fucking revolving door. So they don't mind going to prison. So that's not going to scare them into not attacking you. What you do to them, or what you will do to them if they attack you, that has to scare them. And if it doesn't, then of course you have to just take care of it. But you should try to work yourself, especially if you're a man. You should try to work out so much and be so confident that that person, forget fucking being aware of your surroundings, they have to be aware of theirs and not want to be anywhere near you. So
And
that comes with hard training.
and comes with hard training. Here some comments here. So Tate Winston Comedy says, I know this is a self-defense oriented conversation, but I disagree. I think fighting is beautiful violence. Yeah, that's true. Um, of course, you need to be able to disable threat. That's 100. But what I was going to mention on your point about, yeah, working out so much, training so much that you don't become a target. Like we were talking about earlier about that book, about him saying you got to be aware of your surroundings. But at the same time, in that same book, he interviewed criminals, and what they were looking for was someone who looked like they weren't A, paying attention, or B, could defend themselves.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
women, for the women, he said, well, when you're looking at a woman, one of the things he mentioned for women was women who looked like they were carrying a weapon. That was one of the things that the perp is looking for. They're looking for someone who looks like not only are they not aware of their surroundings, but they don't look like they're even carrying a weapon. And if they had one, they wouldn't use it. So it has to do with if you train enough, the people who are violent criminals are looking for victims, and the more you look like a victim, the higher chances are that you're going to end up being one.
Yeah. That's true. So I think it's an interesting topic. I think at the end of the day, there's two ends to that spectrum, and I think we as martial artists, we are more towards the right side, not just wrong or right, but the right side of the spectrum. And we have to be ready and able and prepared to kill someone and he keeps saying, why do you bring up kill, kill, kill all the time? I said, because that's the end of that spectrum. Just like this end is, oh, let's be, let's de-escalate and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's not going to work 99.9% of the time, um, unless it's at a school or with a drunk buddy or something like that. And 97% of all of this violence, especially towards women, 97% of it goes away if they don't go into a crowded place and consume alcohol. Their chances, 97% of self defense would go out of business if women just wouldn't drink and go into bars. That sounds terrible, but facts are facts. You know what I mean? Just like, I mean, it's terrible to admit that, boxers get brain injuries, but guess what? If they go in the ring, then they're going to get brain injury. It's not mocking them or putting them down, but they put themselves in that situation, right? Without, they put themselves in that situation. They're ready to accept the consequences and not say, hey, that's not fair. It doesn't mean because I box, other people get brain injuries too. Well, yeah, but your chances go up. I mean, exponentially in a ring. Women's chances go up exponentially with alcohol if they're in a bar. Bing.
And then that's for your average assault that's committed by someone you don't know. And then the scarier part is for women, the average assault is usually committed by someone they do know. So that's the creepier, darker part of the book is for women, follow your intuition.
Yeah.
People that you have creepy vibes with. Don't leave yourself in a situation where you're vulnerable with someone that most likely they gave you a creepy vibe. Something in you said they were creepy. And worst case scenario, you're wrong. Worst case scenario, you start avoiding some guy that gives you a creepy vibe and you were wrong. He was actually not a bad person. But you don't want to fuck with that second scenario. So follow your gut instincts about people who you feel you shouldn't trust. It doesn't mean you have to be an asshole about it, but if you have a creepy vibe with someone, don't put yourself in a situation where you're by yourself with that person. If you're feeling that creepy vibe, follow that instinct because you're built psychologically, you are built in with that instinct to protect you. John Cox says the police are not fighting crime, they are answering calls and doing paperwork. I can't blame them after 2020. Yeah. Well, that's a whole other topic that we can cover one of these days.
Even if I don't agree with him, which I don't really agree with that per se, but it's still the same because the same idea is the average response time is over 10 minutes. So, I have a whole video about it if you want to check in on my video somewhere, but how many times you're going to get stabbed in 10 minutes, punched in 10 minutes. I even have one. How many times will you get hit by a 20-pound sledgehammer in 10 minutes? How many times you get shot? You get shot something like in 10 minutes, you get shot over 1,000 times with a gun. I mean, that's how much time the bad guy has to attack you. And the cop wants to get there as soon as he can, and he's going to respond to your call, but they're not there. There's like one cop for every like 4,000 people. I mean, can you imagine fighting 4,000 people by yourself? I mean, it's a big, it's just there's so many more people than cops. Cops just can't respond. My house where I live out in the boonies. 25-minute response time. Do you know if somebody broke into my house and I called 25 minutes? You know how many things would happen in that 25 minutes? That's a 5-round UFC title fight. I mean, that's a long time. So I'm my own 911 call. Everybody's their own 911 call. So you have to realize that and not rely so much on the cops. The cops are doing their best, but there's only so many of them. So you are your own 911 call. No, in your town or where you spend most of your time, check out what the response time is. They're getting there as quick as they can, but you're more than dead if you don't defend yourself. Oh, well, let's wait for the cops. Hold on, honey. Honey, I called the cops. Hold on. I know the guy's hitting you. Oh, shit, he's hitting you hard. Hold on. No, it's going to be 6 more minutes. You can take it. Cover up. Cover up. Let's go. Cover up. Go ahead, like a fetal position. It's just stupid. So anyway, what do you think?
John Cox asks, How do you get people to get over that violence barrier? So you personally, how do you get your students to get over? Because I know we've talked about this, how you have different programs, and one of them is very self-defense oriented. Well, we're talking this conversation about what is self-defense. How do you get your average person to get over that violence barrier?
Yeah. They have to go deep, and it has to be a visceral feeling. They have to love somebody or something, okay? And picture that person getting hurt, and then go from there. Like if somebody's attacking you and you're say your kid isn't there, well, you have to know in your head, if this guy gets what he wants and I don't get violent with him, I'll never see my kid. Somebody else will raise my kid. Somebody will rape my kid. Somebody will beat my kid, or your wife, same thing. You got to put that love. You have to get really visceral about it, and you have to picture, if this guy wins, this bad guy, bad, terrible human wins, then your family is going to pay the price. He might be attacking them next. So you don't have that own if you don't have that self-preservation yourself, then think about your family. So it's either preserve your own life or your family's life. If they don't have either, then they don't deserve to fight for themselves. They should just put their hands behind their back and let the fucking guy just beat them to death. I mean, if they don't have that self-respect or caring for their family, then maybe they should just let the guy do whatever they want to do, right? I mean, come on. That's
So,
what I think.
so Zen asks, what do I do if someone's trying to approach me from a distance, meaning like they're trying to attack me, and I see them coming? What should I do in that kind of situation?
Depends how far it is. Depends if there's a barrier between you and them. Depends if you have time to pull a weapon and get them not to come at you anymore. I mean, can you cross the street or run into a crowd? It depends on so many other things. But here's one. I mean, here's that you could put this in. If you can safely retreat and get out of there, you should always do it. That's number one. If you're in a car, drive away. If you can lock your door, lock your door. If you can go from point A to point B and that point B is safe for whatever reason, go to point B. Okay. If you can just turn and run and start running, okay, that's a real touchy one because you don't know if you can outrun the guy, and if you can, now he has your back. But if you can safely get away, you should always. So I hope that answers the question. Sometimes depends on the distance. You know what I mean?
And then John Cox asks, I don't know if this is the same question. Maybe I'm trying to figure out. But anyway, how do you develop a killer in your fighters? So you mentioned about how you get people to get over the violence barrier for your average.
Street.
How do you
Yeah.
develop a killer in your fighters?
The fighters, it's the same thing, but are you going to let this guy take your title? He's preventing you from providing for your family, providing your legacy, winning the fight, whatever that means to you. That guy is preventing it, and so we train extra hard, and that's what gives them the confidence to have the killer instinct. And then they might not still have the killer instinct if they might be so good and so fit and so talented, but they don't want to take this person out. So then they have to know, if you don't take them out, you're not going to be an exciting fighter. You're not going to make enough money to support your family. In the cage or in the ring, it all revolves around the money and pride of winning a title and your legacy of being a great sport fighter. That guy's trying to take it away from you. Where in the street, he's trying to take your life from you. So it's very, very similar in the training, in the mental aspect of both, very similar, but there are a lot of differences that I where I train my Hawaiian Kempo class versus training my fighters.
All right. Well, everyone, This has been the Live Clean and Fight Dirty show, weekly live at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Today's topic was self-defense. What do experts say? And we're weekly, you can ask a UFC coach your questions about anything. Martial arts, life. Also, the pit.tv. You want to train? The
Pit.tv.
You can sign up
train.
for audit classes. They're very affordable. If this is your first time hearing me say this, it's less than 2 cups of coffee at Starbucks to audit a class.
Yeah.
And also Pit Monster Apparel. Is that right, John?
Pit Monster. Pit Monster Apparel.
Pit Monster Apparel. If you want to get your Pit
swag
merch. All right.
Merch.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you, Zen. Thank you, John. Don't let anyone take your lunch money. We'll catch you next week.